The situation. The Prosper School Board is considering a proposal by the Prosper School Parents Association that would ban certain video games on school property. The association is concerned about the graphic violence in many popular games and the potential risks they could pose to the safety of students and teachers. The Prosper High School Student Council is opposed to the ban on grounds that it would infringe on the rights of students. The board is soliciting input from students and teachers on the proposed video game ban, and you have decided to respond. You are Lee Sampson, a grade 12 student at Prosper High School. You have considered information and opinions from a variety of sources, see pages 22 and 23. After considering the advantages and disadvantages of the proposed ban, you have reached a decision. You now need to write a persuasive letter that clearly explains your decision on the proposed video game ban, the reasons why you believe your decision to be the best decision. The assignment. Write a letter to the Prosper School Board that will persuade its members to either accept or reject the proposed video game ban. In writing your letter, be sure to consider your purpose and audience, study and use the information on the following pages, use an appropriate tone. Remember that you must clearly and directly choose to either accept or reject the proposed ban. What is the video game ban? The proposed video game ban would prohibit the possession or playing of titles on the banned list on school property. The ban would apply to handheld games, computer games, and console-style games. Students found in possession of any of the banned titles would have the games in question confiscated and might face other consequences, such as suspension. Statement from the Prosper School Parents Association. The realistic and graphic nature of the violence in many video games is cause for concern. Although manufacturers have adopted a rating system designed to keep games with explicit content out of the hands of young people, in practice, the system has not been very successful. Many games classified as mature are in fact being played by children. The larger concern for society as a whole should be the questionable values that these games promote, their glorification of senseless violence, and the potential link between make-believe violence and real violent behavior. School administrators must assume responsibility for ensuring that these games are not being played by our children, and the proposed ban is a concrete and necessary first step. Statement from the Prosper High Student Council. The proposed video game ban is a direct violation of the rights of students. While it is true that many video games feature graphic and senseless violence, it is also true that parents are responsible for determining what is appropriate for their own children. A school-enforced ban sends the wrong message and would likely not be enforceable anyway. There are enough challenges facing schools and students these days without inventing new rules and regulations that deal with issues that are not of direct importance to the quality of education or the safety of schools. Opinions on the proposed video game ban. I am strongly in favor of the proposed ban. The destructive violence in many video games is really frightening, and I think we need to ask ourselves what the long-term consequences of exposure to repetitive violent imagery may be. At best, such exposure desensitizes people to real violence. At worst, it may be the beginning of an obsession with violent behavior that can lead to real criminal acts. Colleen Costello, Prosper High School student. People have been arguing over the link between make-believe violence and real violence for decades. First it was movies, then television, then music, now video games. I'm sure that we can ever prove that exposure to artificial violence leads to real violence, and perhaps the opposite may be true. Some psychologists have theorized that make-believe violence offers an outlet for release for those with aggressive tendencies and may reduce the likelihood of such people committing real acts of violence. Owen Carey, Prosper resident. Whether or not there is a link between make-believe violence and real violence is not the issue. The issue is whether or not we can turn a blind eye to the consumption of adult-oriented material by young people. We have a societal responsibility to ensure that rules are followed. People under the age of 18 cannot drink in bars or vote in elections. They should not be sidestepping the ratings process when it comes to adult-oriented video games either. The school has every right, and in fact, the responsibility to ensure that the laws are followed. Ken Chang, Prosper High School counselor. I do not approve of the graphic and degrading violence featured in many video games. However, I feel that it is the responsibility of parents to determine what's appropriate for their children. I would not allow my own children to play such games, but I would not want a school-enforced policy to reduce my responsibility as a parent. In a different situation, I could wind up having a decision I made in good conscience overturned by an outside authority, which would weaken and diminish my authority as a mother. Maria Enriquez, parent.